everyone, and welcome to the In My Defense podcast, where I am on vacation. I don't know if you could tell by the fact that we missed a week, and I definitely sound different than I usually do because I am not recording from my usual space and setup. But I wanted to make sure that we didn't go more than 1 week without putting out a new episode, so that's what we have here. This week on the podcast, I have on my guest Misael, who is here to talk about geopolitics, which is an incredibly fascinating subject when discussing the geography and politics worldwide of different nations. And this is one of those conversations that makes me feel very smart by just by having them. Not to hate on the more geeky subjects, but when you sit down and you start talking about geopolitics, it does make you feel a little bit more refined. I feel like I should have had a cup of tea with this podcast, but anyways, Misael was a great guest. Just so you guys know, there will not be a new episode coming out next week because, vacation time and recording made it a little bit more difficult. But don't worry, the In My Defense podcast will be back soon with several more recordings bringing geeks week to week. Remember, if you want to be on the show, check out the website, send us an email for feedback, leave us 5-star ratings on iTunes. But in the meantime, let's get into this geopolitical episode with Misael. So I am here with one of my good friends, Misael Garcia. Misael, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Christian. How are you?
And we are here to discuss a topic of Misael's choosing of geopolitics. And Misael, before we get started, do you want to explain maybe what geopolitics is and why you wanted to talk about this subject in particular?
Yes. Why I want to talk about geopolitics, I think it's something very personal. I was born here in the States, but I was raised in Mexico. And seeing the political change in Mexico and then coming to the States and seeing the political change going from in Mexico, the party that ruled for 7 years was kicked out and everyone expected to Mexico to go better. And then now in 2018, they chose a Mexican Donald Trump. And then coming to the States in 2007, seeing Obama winning the presidential election and everyone sharing that was the end of, just in general, of racism and many things that, we're just going to go from here up. And then in 2016, seeing Donald Trump winning the presidency. And so it's like seeing from, why is this happening? Like for me, it's like, I'm really interested in the human aspect. Why is this happening? And watching the news, there was no answer to that.
So you saw, so when you were growing up and seeing stuff happening on the news, you saw these weird, maybe not weird, but surprising changes in the political landscape and the way that people live their lives. And you kind of why is this? And so you thought to yourself, why does this happen? Is it just because of people, or is it other aspects of our lives that are kind of affecting how we think? So what effect does geopolitics have on us then? Because from what I understand it, geopolitics when you break that word apart, geo meaning world and politics being what they are, you would think it would just mean politics on a world scale, but that's not really it, right? Geopolitics has to do with how actual geography and how the placement and sizes of certain countries around the world can actually affect how they interact with each other. Is that am I on the right track there when I kind of define it that way?
Yes, you're in the right track. According to Google Translate, geopolitics is politics, especially international relations as influenced by geographical factors. So if we divide geopolitics in two parts, is geography and politics. And we know that geography is the study of Earth's features: valleys, mountains, deserts, rivers, all of that. And politics. And politics, according to the Webster Dictionary, is the art or is the science of government. So anything that has to do how to lead a government, how to lead people. And so I think that when we talk about geopolitics, many people just want to focus on the land. Okay, so we have this piece of land. You draw a line. This is this country. This is country. And that's how this country is going to interact. And I think that's how many people see, like, try to think. Okay, so Mexico has, for example, Mexico has the border with the United States and the border with Guatemala. Therefore, it can be a link between them. But what we see is that the U.S. uses Mexico as a extension of the border to keep people from South America out, right?
Mm-hmm. So what geopolitics tends to cover is that, like, Mexico isn't Mexico if it's in another place. Like, it's because of Mexico's position, because of its placement on a map. And where the borders get drawn up is how it is. It feels like it'd be like, what's the word for it? Second nature to know this stuff, like to know that, oh well, of course, like this country wouldn't be this country if it was in the same place, if it was somewhere else in the world. But you would think, like, if the United States was in Europe, or if the United States was in Asia, but it had the same history, you would think it would be the same country. But that's not true. It's like it's because of this particular position that the country is what it is, and only a country that was in this particular place could have gone through these actual events in its history. It's kind of like what I'm like realizing that it doesn't seem like something that you would have to, that unless you were thinking about it, that you would actually come to terms with.
Yeah, and yeah, you're exactly right. The placement, the geographical features of each country affect how that gives them an order of how that country is going to interact. But the part that a lot of people forget is also the people, because people tend to work in a certain way, right? And I like to cover this part first, because if we only focus on the geographical features, we're gonna forget the people's perspective, right? And then it's like, well, if Mexico has so many resources, why is there still so much violence, right? And so these part of people, and this is where I would like to ask for empathy. It's called love of one's zone, right? We are all born out of a family of a mother and a father. That mother and father, they gave us language, they gave us culture, they gave us a religion, and they give us a community. When we grow up, we can choose to embrace it, we can choose to deny it, we can choose to get away from it. But we cannot deny that we are influenced by the people, by where we were raised. Now, what does that mean? This means that, like, being empathetic to a person, in this sense of what drives a Karen to want to talk to the manager. Right? That's probably the main question of what geopolitics tries to answer. What drives a Karen to talk to the manager? If we put it like in more technical terms, why someone is going to vote for a Donald Trump? Mm-hmm. Why? Because based on on how that person grows up is gonna be how that person is gonna choose their leaders, choose what to do, choose what to buy, and those things lead the government to interact with its people and with other countries in a certain way.
Yeah. We had an election recently, or depending on when someone might be listening to this episode, and we saw that people who tend to vote a certain way are people who the fact that, like, blue states tend to be the ones with the largest populations is an accident, right? Like, even if you look at, like, we're both from Florida. If you look at the map of Florida during the election, Florida barely went red, and most of the places that were blue on that map were the places where there were universities and large cities, places where a lot of people congregated and were interacting with each other. And then you tend to find that in more rural places are the ones where people kind of like vote red and are more concerned with their own personal, maybe not personal agendas is the best word, but basically, like, their points of view are challenged much less often. because there's not as much differing beliefs in rural areas where there's less people, and we've seen history since the beginning of civilizations that people tend to the places where most people go tend to be coastal areas near rivers, and those kind of things, and those are usually the biggest cities in the world, are the ones that sit on the water islands. Manhattan is an island, and New York City is right there on the East Coast. LA and California, Miami, Jacksonville, like all these kind of places are just these huge cities that sit in places where people have been congregating for 1,000 years at this point.
Yeah, exactly, and that's like where there is two parts to this. So the first part is a river, of course, because it brings more people, because a river makes easier to trade. Just is 70 times more expensive to send something by truck, assuming there is infrastructure, than to send anything by boat. Therefore, rivers tend to be where people congregate, and that brings a variety of people, and that makes a city, because a metropolis, being able to accept better ideas. But at the same time, now, and again, like being empathetic to the right-wing side, they're not just being challenged by what they believe, and confronted that sometimes what they believe is wrong, but they're also, at least for the last 6 to 8 years, they have been shamed by what they believe. Now, because you're Christian, and just generalizing, just because you're a Christian person, then that means you're anti-gay or anti-abortion, or just because you believe in your religion, that means you're a bigoted. Now, is that right or wrong? That's not the point. The point is that since you feel attacked, you're gonna go more to your extreme. Right.
I will say, while you're right that there are plenty of people that make assumptions about right winged folks and people that live in like rural areas and farmers and people that live out in the boonies, I'm sure there are people that make their assumptions about those kind of people, but most of the people who tell them that they're being criticized are people that are already on their side, because I mean there are plenty of people in this world that make a profit out of telling people who believe a certain way that oh yeah, we don't believe what you think is wrong. It's those other people that believe what you think is wrong, and they're the ones that you need to go against. And of course, because those people don't have a lot of interactions with a lot of diverse opinions, just by nature of where they live, it makes it difficult for them to question what they're being told. And again, I am sympathetic to that, because it's not purely an American problem, but I can only speak from that perspective. But it is very hard to travel in America. It is very difficult to get to places. America is huge. There are large swaths of people that exist all across this gigantic landmass. And if for me personally, it's not like in Europe. Europe, you can take a train to go to another country and you'll be there in an hour. In most countries in Europe, it's super easy to expose yourselves to someone who speaks a different language, someone who doesn't know your language at all, to a whole different culture, and you can do that in an afternoon when you're living in Europe. You can't do that here in the States. If I wanted to leave to go to some place where no one spoke English, it would cost me $1,000. Like, just flat out, just to go there. It's not something that would be easily accessible for me personally to do, and it's not really something that most people in the country can do. So that I think that's why we have this American exceptionalism thing that happens, where the stereotype of the stupid American, the one who the tourists who go from Kansas and they fly to France and they get shit for wearing their red, white, and blue American flags and trying to tip the waiter and doing things that are considered inappropriate in another country, because again, it might going to another country and introducing yourself to a whole different culture might be a once in a lifetime opportunity for a good chunk of the population here. And I imagine that's something that happens in other places too, but I can only speak from my perspective.
Yeah, okay. yes, it's easier to travel in Europe, but we cannot forget that. I mean, like 3-4 years ago, there was a Brexit, and
Yeah.
and there is the Greece is in total poverty, while Germany is doing really well, and there is so much tension right now in the European Union. And while it's easier to travel within Europe, still Europe is not as unified as the United States, because the United States is a country. You have different states. You have, and this, for example, this happened in 2008, where the financial crisis happened in New York. When that happened, the president, the national bank, sat down and said, "Okay, we're gonna bail out these loans." Like they probably broke so many rules in the book, who knows how many, and they solved the problem. Now, whether Texas wanted or not to pay, it had to pay the bailout. Mm-hmm. In Europe, what happened is that Germany, being so strong, plays the euro a certain level, where it kept their price right to sell, but not too low to have low wages. Now, a country like Greece, that is more like Mexico than Europe, just because of how the terrain works, it needed a lower value for its currency. Now, just in order to keep workers. When you have that, Greece then started to borrow money from the European Union, mainly Germany, just to keep the country together, right? But after 2008, we see that Germany doesn't want to pay for the bailout for Greece, and they're saying, no, they're lazy. The narrative they took, they're lazy. While the Greek perspective is that, well, okay, but we could not work that well because Germany, you're taking control of the money. Therefore, you see that right now.
Well, what I'm hearing is that, like, I mean, these are very similar problems that happen in the U.S. Like, it makes sense for it to be happening in the European Union because the European Union is this large conglomerate of separate entities that are coming together that operate with the same currency and follow a lot of the same basic institutions. Similar to, not exactly the same, but similar to how the United States is a country of states. It's a series of states coming together that have their own state governments, but then also operate under a federal government. And so when you say something like Texas having to pay for something that happened to New York, and then Greece having to pay for something that's happening in Germany, yeah, that makes sense to me because and then when you brought up like Brexit earlier, like the UK, I mean, well, not the UK, but England is not part of the European Union. They can do something like Brexit because they've stayed their own entity and haven't really joined in with the European Union just yet.
Yeah, but that is the point. That's the point, is that anyone in Europe can opt out of the European Union. No one in the United States can opt out of being a part of the United States.
They've tried. They're trying so hard.
But there was a war. There was the Civil War.
Yeah.
But back in the mid 1800s, no, 1800s, yeah. And so,
it's like there's going to be a civil war in the 2020s.
It's like, yeah, we're here to predict that now. I'm gonna cry. I hope not. No, okay. So look, the European Union is not a country; it's a trade union. The monetary policy, and I hope I'm writing this, but the monetary policy is held in Brussels, but the fiscal the fiscal policy is held in Brussels. So they tell you what you're gonna how you can get money borrowed, but the monetary policy is held within each different country. So you don't have a unified country there. You have just a trade union.
And unfortunately, And so from what I understand, unfortunately, like if something, like you said, like Germany, if something is going well in Germany, and that brings up the value of the euro, it can have a detrimental impact on the economy of a country like Greece, because they can't keep up, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that means that so now the ones that are suffering the most are Greece. They have like 30% unemployment. And these are numbers based on the, like, you can compare them to the Great Depression in the 1929. This, I think that in the US at least was 25% unemployment. Greece is like 29.
And I'm thinking, like, I mean, since this episode is about geopolitics, does Germany do you think Germany has like a natural advantage existing in a trade union because of their position in Europe? Like, Germany is surrounded by countries on all sides. Like, it has plenty of options considering what it can do for the trade. And then Greece is probably a little bit more limited to that degree.
Yes, exactly. But let's look at what is called the German question. Germany is located on the on the north part of the Central Europe, and it has the most fertile land, the most plain land, and the best rivers of Europe. I think it has like 3 rivers. And just as I mentioned before, rivers make trade so easy. Fertile land makes a lot of food, and the plains, because they're plains, the great European plain makes it that that Germany is so difficult to defend, right? So anything that Germany does, and I think this is because of their people, like they're so good. If you have met any German person, I have met some in college. They're very meticulous. They're very good to organize themselves,
because they have to be, because knowing that your interaction with another nation kind of leaves your belly open, because they're so easy to say attack. You have to be able to cover all the details and cover your back as much as possible.
Yes, exactly. So now they're very unified and they're very strong. And when they're strong,
and this has been true for almost all of like history in Europe, right? Because Germany, I mean, like the English monarchy comes from Germany. Like, Germany was this big swathing European nation. Like when the Romans were taking over all of Europe, like they became Germanic. They was the primary, the biggest nations in the world started in Germany to some degree.
Yeah, exactly, and that's because of the geographical features of Germany. They're just so rich, and so when they get so rich, they get so powerful, and they probably need to expand either geographically or militarily or economically, right? So you have these factors that the problem of Europe is the problem of Germany, that Germany is so strong, but it has to expand. It's not like you have mountains to keep Germany together. No, it expands just by the nature of the valley. And so that makes Germany to be able to take advantage of monetary policy like in this moment, right? But for example, now we're going to Greece. Greece, if you look at a map of Greece, is a lot of islands and it's a lot of mountains. That's why you have Sparta, you have Athens, like great naval powers. When the city states was the biggest power.
Yeah, I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm totally aware.
That's awesome. So now,
so like what I understand, so it allowed for a lot of the cities in Greece, a lot of the powers in Greece to remain isolationist, right? Because they were separated by mountains. There wasn't as much unity across the country.
Exactly. And because there's mountains, it's hard it's hard to make trade, and it's hard to connect with other people. And because you have mountains, then you don't have the valleys to cultivate. You don't have the rivers to trade within you. So Greek is just like Mexico is very unstable by itself. So try to bring up Greece to the level of Germany, ignoring this the geographical location and ignoring how people are not as integrated in their own country as Germans are, makes this clash between Germany and Greece just by the nature of that people are not integrated and that geography doesn't work for Greece.
Yeah, people, you can't treat these different countries like they're the same because they're operating under different circumstances. It's harder for it's been harder for thousands of years for people in Greece to talk to each other.
Yes, exactly.
As opposed to some other places. And so they need a leg up. They need empathy. They need people to understand that, hey, can you guys give us a leg up or something like that? Can you like give us a chance? Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the same thing you find all over the place. Like just lack of treating equality and equity is a thing that a lot of people get confused, right? Because you can treat everybody equally, but that doesn't change the fact that some more than others are starting with less. They're starting with less to work with, and so you could treat everybody equally and give everybody a fair shot, but already Germany is already ahead of the pack compared to Greece. Caucasian folks in America are already ahead of the pack when it comes to like black people. Other better examples that if I was smarter I could probably come up with, those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, I know you want to talk about empathy and how why that is so important in subject matter like this, and trying to figure out like why things go. Do you think things go bad because of a lack of empathy, because people aren't trying to understand each other?
Yeah, exactly. I think yes, the lack of empathy brings a lot of problems, because then just like the example of Greece, you're saying, or many people, no, I'm not saying you, but many people say that, oh, it's because they're lazy. Or
which is another stereotype about Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. And if we look at Mexico, it's like Greece. There is so many mountains, and the pockets of arable land are separated.
Yeah, for hundreds and hundreds of years, it was just hard for people to talk to each other.
Yeah, and so now when you have this lack of empathy to understand that, okay, it's not that Greece people are lazy, that German people, like there's a lot of German people that have to be lazy. There is a lot of Americans that are lazy, just like Mexican people are lazy. There has to be a lot of, like Mexican, there's people of Mexico that are lazy, but there's also a lot of people from Mexico that are hardworking, just like Americans are hardworking, just like Germans have people hardworking, just like Greek people have hardworking people. But if when we don't have that empathy that to put ourselves in the shoes of other people, then we start blaming them for what they're going through, or we start being afraid of them for what we think they're gonna take away from us.
Right. So yeah, I mean, yeah, this is something that I've been saying I think I consider myself an empathetic person. I can't really say that for myself, but I try to some degree whatsoever, because we, like, even on an individual level, you can't compare your struggle to someone else's. You can never do that. You can't say, well, you can have a shitty life and have found yourself in a better place, and you can't say, well, I did all this, I did all that work, why can't they do the same thing? Like, I'm sure the U.S. does it all the time. U.S. says we're the best. We went through all this stuff, all these wars and all these problems to become a country, one of the most powerful nations in the world. I'm sure Germany, to some degree, I'm sure there's plenty of Germans in the European Union who are like, well, Germany has this complicated history, but like we've been around forever. Germanic culture it's been super important for the progress of society, right? Like, why can't Greece? I'm sure people are like, why can't Greece do the same thing? Why can't Mexico do the same thing? And it's like, because it's not the same. And like, you just want to grab those people by the shoulders and just be like, because they're not the same. They're operating under it's an entirely different situation. You can't compare one person's struggle over another because you just can't. It's one of those things where like people say one of the biggest things that people are worrying about today is the canceling of student loans. Right? Basically the only argument I hear about it against canceling student loans is, well, I paid off all my student loans, so now they have to pay off all their student loans, which is stupid. Because you're saying, oh, I had to do this terrible thing, and the only way that they can really get up to my level is if they also have to do this terrible thing, which is a dumb thought, because I've always believed that like if you can afford to give a leg up to the people who need it most, I mean, the rising tide picks up all ships. It'll be better for everyone overall if everyone is given the opportunity to get up to the same level as everybody else. And that does not mean having to go through the same struggles. I think America has like a bad history of like whenever some new group is introduced into the workforce, they're always the ones that get the shit for it, right? Like during the industrial age, it was like Irish and Italians had to do their thing. Then it was black people. Then it was Latinx immigrants, and then it was people from the Middle East. Like, it's a stupid thing where there's like a hazing ritual whenever a new group is introduced into society. They have to start on the bottom of the ladder like everybody else did, which is dumb.
Yeah, and I think that as different people are able to establish themselves here in the States, I mean, sadly, they tend to forget what their past, their previous, like, you know, their parents, their grandparents, and so on, like, had to live through in order to be at the level they are now. And because yes, I think that is just very simple to not empathize with other people, just like you mentioned about the student loans. Like we have now, what is the boomers like, oh no, back in my day when I was going to school, I had to like travel like 3,000 miles walking and under the rain, and I don't know what many things they say, but it's like, yeah, now you guys are being lazy. And no,
yeah,
I mean, dumb. In a certain way, I mean, yeah, education has become easier to access, but also that brings up challenges that now the value of a degree devalues as more people get educated. Yeah, and at the same time, you know, it's like it's very easy to judge, and when we're judging, I think
I said this on a previous podcast, and it was such a good metaphor that I was so proud that I said it. And I'm saying this. I'm not gonna cut this out of the podcast because I want people to know how proud I am of this metaphor. But it's like when your parents teach you how to swim, right? A very popular way to teach your kids how to swim is just throw them into the deep end of the pool and watch them learn for themselves, right? And a lot of the parents who do that will be like, well, that's how my father taught me how to swim. That's how his father taught him how to swim. And it's like, no, teach me how to swim. Give me your experience, and I'll take what I know, and I'll combine them, and I'll be a better swimmer than any of us ever were. There's no point. There's no point in like trying to get everybody to suffer through the same tribulations just to bring them up to like the way it's always been. No, combine our efforts, work together, get everybody on the same page, and give the next generation a leg up, and things will be better all around for everybody across the board.
Yeah, and I think that you mentioned something. It's like we cannot keep things the same, and that's like another thing from geopolitics that is very important. Is like change is always constant. And the funny part is that everyone is surprised that the permanent the permanent doesn't stay there. It keeps changing.
fuck the status quo.
Yeah, and I mean, the status quo is going to change no matter what. And I think we as society will be suffering less if we were empathetic and understand that change in the economy going down, troubles are part of history. Are, you know, this thing with Trump is nothing new. Similar issues were happening in the 1960s, where you have a lot of social changes, and then there was a big like
a challenging of the status quo.
Yeah, we have there that in the 60s where the Republicans shifted to be the ones that are conservative, and the Democrats became the liberals, right? And so the point is that change is going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, these things happen on a pendulum. It's a pendulum swing, and right now we're probably on right where the swing is at its peak, where things at the most chaotic, things are up all over the place and they can go anywhere, and then it won't be until that swing comes back around that things tend to calm down, but then it'll swing back up again. Like there's like it is a part of a cycle, but I think it is the responsibility, and you can challenge me. Hey, in my defense, this is the name of the show, but you can challenge me on this. But I do think it's kind of like a responsibility of the people to be aware of these kind of like pendulum swings, and to make sure that these times, when the times are bad for the most people, when times are bad, and when I say they're bad, maybe I'm not mean bad for everybody, but bad for the largest population, right? Like whatever, if more people have it bad than good, then we're in a bad place. So we want to make sure that those periods of time when that happens want to be as short as possible, and I think that is something that we have some control over. Am I wrong? You might not be. I know you may. This is a matter of opinion, but this is my show. I need someone to prove. I want someone to tell me I'm right. Please tell me I'm right.
I mean, in my defense, I don't think so. I don't honestly. I don't know how long this is gonna take. Looking at geopolitical perspective, I mean, I wish to know, but this is a process it's probably going to take years. Maybe this decade that is going to be really hard, just because of the economic problem, the society problem, and now that we have the random throw of dice called coronavirus. So this problem is gonna take years to recover from. And so it's like right now, for me, this is very important to cover. The geopolitics is like, this is going to happen, whether you want it or not. So once you accept that this is going to happen, you can decide what to do. It's like, okay, you know, I'm not going to engage, or I'm going to save money, or, you know, you can change your perspective of what can you do to have a better life, despite of this turmoil that is happening. And I think that that's the main thing is like, just accept that this is going to happen and go with your life, you know, because at the end of the day, you cannot change people. People are going to go and, you know, we're gonna fight for what they believe is right, even though they're wrong.
I'm gonna do it, Misael. I'm going to change everybody. One episode of a podcast at a time. I am going to put my voice out there on the internet and convince everybody to be nice to each other. I will do it.
Okay. And if it happens, I want to be on your right side.
I hope I'm on the right side. Who knows? My biggest fear is that, like, by the time people always say that when you're young you'll be liberal, but then as you get older you'll be conservative. But I'm hoping that I am my version of whatever conservative is that I am now. Where conservative just means super liberal, and then there's gonna be some new next level liberal when I'm 80 years old and I'm yelling at kids because they want to have sex with a computer or something like that. Who knows? So
in my days, we used to watch. We didn't.
Well, yeah, in my days, the computer was a tool. Now it's not. Now it's your girlfriend, and I'm against it. So, Misael, do you have any like major thoughts on as we're kind of like teaming up to the end of what this episode will be? Do you have any like major thoughts on politics? Like, I think that message you just put out there was a good one. Well, maybe not a good one. Wasn't very hopeful. Although I understand where you're coming from, because it's a release, right? Like it's people. It's a way to like de-stress, because like, oh yeah, this is just the way things are. I don't need to worry about it. I can live my life the way I want to, because we're working on a cycle here, and this one might be particularly in the negative, just depending on your perspective. But as long as I do my thing, I try to help out the people around me. If I can help other people that I may not know, do what I can to help out just society in general. Things will work out eventually, and then they'll go bad, but then they'll work out again. Then they'll go bad, then they'll work out again.
Yeah, that's just a natural way of things. Things work, then they don't work, and then we have people on the streets, and then we have like a lot of progress, and then we have a pushback of conservatives, and then it's like this is just natural history of mankind. So I think for me, at least for me, it's helpful to understand. Okay, like this is just gonna happen, whether I want it or not. So I'm just gonna ride the waves. Doesn't really matter, because things are gonna happen either way. My opinion on what is happening right now.
Well, so on the scope of like, is there any major like geopolitical event that exists today? Like, I remember like when we were first going to record this, one of the big stories that was happening was like the ban on the TikTok app, right? Mm-hmm. And America using that as an excuse to like do something against China. Like it was kind of like a fuck you to China in a little bit, because the original the company that created the app is based in China, but it has an American CEO, so whatever. But just thinking about like any like major events that are happening today. And this episode is probably going to come out like 3 weeks after we're recording. But are there any events that are happening today that you're just keeping an eye on? Ones that have caught your interest lately. If not, you just say no, and then we'll just move on.
Yeah. Well, I guess like the Chinese. There is. I can talk to you about the Chinese problem right now.
Is it a problem, or is it just like one other country kind of like just doing their thing? Like, is China making its way to become like the next America, where they're just going to bully their way into like becoming the most powerful nation ever?
It wishes to, but it can't. It definitely can't. If we look at a Chinese map, we see that the east part of China is, in the China Sea. So this is a very powerful trading area. When we look at the west, we see mountains, we see deserts, and we see the water, the lakes in the Everest Mountains, Tibet in the Tibet area. And so that area is very, very very poor. It's like another Mexico, another Greece. So what you have in China is a competition between the east side, which becomes very prosperous by trading with the outside, and the west side that
Sorry.
And the west side that is always poor, but is needed to protect the east side. So, and that's where you have if we just look at this part of the geography, we can see the history of China, dynasty after dynasty after dynasty, bringing up China together into a very strong military dictatorship and breaking apart. Again, another dynasty, dictatorship, breaking apart. And so what is happening right now in China with Xi Jinping, it's the same thing right now. A couple of years he discovered there is corruption in China. Right. It's like, it's what is happening is he's destroying his enemies, because he sees that right now China is probably going back again into the history of breaking up. Now, what is happening is with the United States, we have to understand something. Before the 1980s, U.S. manufacturing was, in the Midwest, Chicago and Detroit, the most known place to be destroyed by, by the companies leaving Midwest going to China, right?
Right.
So when these trade between China and the United States happened, both countries benefited really well. The U.S. got cheaper products and easier to get products to middle class. Chinese people got more money and more ways to industrialize their country. But there is a problem. The problem in the United States is that people, the regular Karen who just wants to talk to the manager, is losing her job because Chinese manufacturing is so cheap, or was so cheap. In China, the problem is that their sole economy became so dependent on the United States that it doesn't work internally. So we have this problem that started with Obama, saying that that the U.S. needs to be able to enter the Chinese market because Chinese are very protective of their own market. Why? Because they need to keep producing themselves. They cannot buy. They need to produce just because of how China is, the geography. And China saying, I cannot let you into my market because if I let you into my market, then you're going to break it apart. And if you break apart my market, then I'm going to go back to the end of the dynasty. So what is happening right now between China and the U.S. is this trade war where the U.S. wants China to open up so it can sell to China, so it can have more workers working, more Karens working instead of talking to the manager. And China saying, I can open to you because if I open to you, Shanghai, Hong Kong will be more tied to you than to Beijing, and they will want to break apart.
Okay. That's an interesting way to think about it, where like, and again, I did the stupid thing where I wasn't considering the geography of China, but yeah, like we have this super large country where most people live, where just literally most people in the world are in China. And not only that, but like the other third of the people also live like right under China. And so you have this super large country divided up by mountains that is also surrounded by several other powerful countries. And I'm just considering now, like, yeah, America just got super lucky that we have Mexico under us and Canada above us, and there's really no one to challenge the states as it is for China, where China is always kind of like in constant like defense and offense. Like they want to become more powerful, but they've also got to spend a lot of resources just trying to like talk to each other and to keep other people out.
Yeah, and let's talk for a little bit of U.S. geography, because the reason the U.S. is so powerful is the geography. Because China cannot rise and has to rise about 4 times larger, and the U.S. economy not grow up a lot at all, right? And because and I want to say this because it's also empathizing with the U.S. Okay, it's not the U.S. like has the best people and the best constitution, and it's
hell no. I don't think that at all.
And so when we have the U.S., right? If you look at the map of the U.S., you have the East Coast and the West Coast, but the core of the U.S. is the Mississippi Basin, which is kind of like the center east of the.
It's a giant river that goes all the way from the bottom to the top.
Well, it's not just not a river. It's a network of rivers that are navigable all the way up to like South Carolina and all of that. You can just like say hi to the president faces on a boat. Technically, and you have this arable land that makes it's the largest chunk of land in the world. So you have this land that produces so much food, so much capital. As I mentioned before, rivers makes it so easy to trade, and you have that people in the Mississippi Basin, they understand each other really well. They connect with each other really well. So that makes that the United States very easy to to capitalize very cheaply. Right. On the north, you have the Great Lakes. On the south, you have the Sonoran Desert. And of course, on the east and west, you have the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This makes it that the United States is not only the richest country, the easiest to make capital of, but also the most protected country in the world. So that means that the focus of the United States is to prevent any army to come and attack the core. Therefore, the United States, with all the capital that it has and the location of that it has, because it's away from Europe, it created the largest navy in the world to protect itself. Not that China didn't want to, it's just that China can't do that. And so the United States, you see that it is expansionary, militaristic craziness that happens in the United States has a logic behind it to protect the core. And, like treats Mexico as the backyard and Canada as the front yard.
As a friendly neighbor, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think what I've learned out of this conversation is that mountains are a bitch.
Yes.
So I'm going to walk away with this conversation with just that. Misael, this was a terrific conversation. You've been a terrific guest. I think it's totally possible that we can just do another episode based on this subject. So if you ever want to come back, or have an urge to come back and talk about some other thing that might be bugging you about geopolitics, feel free, let me know. If there are folks who want to follow you online or engage with you, do you have any kind of like social media that you'd like to share, or are you just gonna disappear and come back on this podcast next time we want to talk about this?
I'll probably disappear and come back. I have a Facebook and a YouTube, but I don't really post anything, honestly. This is more for me just being a geek and, hey, let me geek about geopolitics. So I thank you because of that.
That's exactly what I'm here for.
And, maybe we can just advertise Community Clutter Bay,
the Color Bay Community Theater, where me and Misael first met. We do improv. You can see me and Misael usually on Monday nights over Zoom nowadays because of, the plague, teaching improv to anybody who would like to engage with us on that platform. You can find Color Bay Community Theater on Facebook, Color Bay Plays on Instagram. Reach out, folks, if you want to just see my face playing pretend and see Misael's face also playing pretend.
Yeah.
But Misael, it was a lot of fun talking to you, buddy. Love you so much. Let's get into the outro.
Thank you.
And that is the episode, folks. I don't want to waste too much of your time while I'm here sounding very terrible, so just some reminders. Big thank you to Misael for being on the show. Lovely to have him on. We'll be glad to have him back on. If you have any feedback for the episode, feel free to send feedback to inmydefensepodcast@gmail.com. Interest in the show or being on the show, feel free to check out inmydefensepodcast.com for all details regarding that. Please leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. Give us a review too. We're very lacking in that department, if I want to say so myself, and I host the show. Also, there will not be another episode next week, but like I said, we will not go more than 1 week without new episodes coming out. I promise you that. That is a promise from here on out. So it may not be next week, but we will see another geek on the In My Defense podcast. Oh, and by the way, for all you Avatar: The Last Airbender fans, we have a little something special for you after the music finishes. Check it out.
So about Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is the show where the geopolitics play heavily into just like even the plot and the character of the show, which is I think is one of the things that you very rarely see. So you watched the show for the first time this year, right? Because of Netflix?
Yeah, I watched it because of Netflix, and ironically, thanks to the pandemic, that I didn't have much to do, and I loved it. And just like when I watched and like learning about geopolitics, like, oh my god, this makes so much sense. What they're putting in the show is like, wow. And
because you have like these 4 nations that exist on this world. And like for anybody that hasn't seen the show, it's an entirely new world of people that have powers based off of where they were born to control the elements. And in like the main crux of the show, in the very first series in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Fire Nation, which is this nation made of people who live on an archipelago, basically wants to colonize the entire world. And yeah, like the amount of thought that I think the writers put into the storytelling and what the geopolitics mean for all that kind of stuff, because it's very much like my favorite thing in improv and my favorite thing in storytelling is like, if this is true, then what else is true, right? You have this entire nation of people who can make fire with their hands, right? So okay, that means that if this series is going to take place in a somewhat feudal, medieval style world, the people who can create fire with their hands will probably be able to access industry a lot sooner than everybody else. They'll have better technology. They'll be able to prosper more based off depending on the resources that exist in their country. But of course, because they live in an archipelago, they have to expand. They have to grow and expand. They get this idea of Fire Nation exceptionalism, and like not only do they need to spread their nation to other nations, but their culture to other nations, but they also need to spread their wealth, right? It's how you justify a war. You say, oh yeah, we're better than everybody else, so we'd only be helping them by trying to conquer them, is how that kind of nation works. Is that kind of like how you felt about the series?
Oh, exactly. I think it's just it's like lovely how you put it. Like they needed to expand, and I think the Fire Nation was based on Japan.
They're all based on separate. Like the water nations are based off the water tribes are based off of like Inuit peoples. The Earth Nation is based off of China. The air nomads are kind of like a Buddhist kind of monk vibe to them.
Yeah, and so I think something that I didn't get to mention in the podcast is, and something that is very true in the outside world, in the real world, just as in the Avatar world, is okay. We need to expand. We need to get more resources. We need to get more. We need to get more land. And in order to do that, in order to get people mindset to do that, like to get an entire nation to go to war, you have to create a narrative of we're the best, they're the worst. We need to get land. So these guys need.
We're helping them. We're only helping them by trying to conquer them.
Exactly, we're helping them. So it's like I was talking with Marina that I got to kind of started to watch some videos about the World War II, and I got to watch a video of Hitler's speech, subtitles in Spanish, just to understand what is the craze about Hitler. And I mean, it's like he just it's very simple language, but very constructive narrative of we're the good people, they're the bad, we need to get the land, so we teach them, or we cleanse it. So like with Avatar, it's like the Fire Lord is like has this narrative, and I think you can see even in what is it, the third season where they're in the Fire Nation.
Yeah, and they're teaching kids like kind of like a false history sort of, where the air nomads were the ones who were aggressive towards the Fire Nation, and them just being super limiting on like how much information is accessible to just like the general population of the Fire Nation, because they're trying to establish a narrative that because if they just told everybody, no, I want to take over the world because I deserve it, because I'm the best person in the world, there will be plenty of people even within that nation who'll be like, no, what? No, you crazy, stop.
Yeah, exactly. So they create this narrative, especially in children, like, okay, you guys are the best. You got you like was trying to like the Fire Nation is the strongest, therefore has to control everything just for it to be perfect. And so you have these behind the story, the story of Aang and Prince Zuko and the Fire Lord. You have this geopolitics of we need more resources, and also like the Earth Nation, like the last Earth Nation standing is protecting themselves, but also creating this narrative of like, oh, there is no war here.
Yeah, they have to totally ignore things, because again, you can tell that in the writing of the show, the geography of the world was a very important decision they had to make, right? The Earth Nation is spread out across this wide continent that is divided by a gigantic desert, right? So again, communication is very difficult between. That's why there's so many different kings across the Earth Nation, is because they're not unified, right? The Water Tribe is literally split up by different poles, like one on the North Pole and one on the South Pole. The Air Nomads exist across several temples across the entire world, and a lot of them don't even like spend a lot of time there. They travel the world on their own. The only nation that was unified was the Fire Nation, and yes, they exist across a bunch of islands, but because of their innate abilities to create fire, they were able to traverse those islands very quickly and be able to communicate with each other. So the Fire Nation was the most unified. They were the ones that were able to take advantage of that unification and excel in technology, and then that made it just all the more easier for them to spread across the world faster than anybody else could, because the other nations were just not really capable of fighting back because they weren't as unified as the Fire Nation was.
Yeah, exactly. Because when we look at the South, the North Pole, the water tribes, what resources could they have? What resources could they have? And probably and also the Earth Nation, or the Earth Nations were divided, and so they have enough resources to hold against the Fire Nation for a long time. And the Air Nomads, just by their nature of being air, I don't think like they even like they're that unified as an entity, as a
they weren't even necessarily like, they were more a culture. They weren't necessarily like a country or an actual government by their own rights, because it was just they were just a bunch of people that like to hang out together and fly. They just like to fly together.
Yeah, it's like just like some monks like hanging together, with air, and then you have the that's why it's so easy to take the Earth. The Air Nomads.
Yeah. Did you get into Legend of Korra at all?
I think I'm in the middle of the third season.
I love the third season. It's probably my favorite one out of the 4, but I think you are going to love season 4. Season 4 gets very much into the geopolitics of the Earth Nation to like a very, very heavy degree.
Wow. You know something that I like about the Legend of Korra is that it's more localized, the issues. Like, it's not this big geopolitical thing that happened in Avatar, but it's more like this city political. It's more political. Legend of Korra is more political to the local, to the city than Avatar, and I like that, because Legend of Korra was like 2012, right, when it came out.
Around there, yeah. It was a few years after The Last Airbender ended, but yeah, I think for season 3 and 4, they definitely expand on the world a little bit and leave the main Republic city. But I think season 3, I love season 3 most because of the philosophy of that season. That season was the one that was like very, I think that season it wasn't called Spirit. I think it was. I forgot what it was called, but it's I don't know if it's War or Chaos or something like that, book 3, but book 4 is about a single, and they hint at it in season 3, so watch out for a certain someone. But in season 4 is about a leader in the Earth, a military leader in the Earth nation attempting to unify all the different provinces across, using what happened in America, a railroad. Because how do you help a large landmass communicate with each other? You create a form of transportation to bring them all together, which is where season 4 goes with it. So
yeah,
I think you're really gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, actually, I'm looking forward to it.
It's great. Season 2 of Legend of Korra is not very great. It has some really cool moments, but that was more. That was more because of executive production getting too heavily involved in the narrative of the story. But yeah, I just want to get that out there as a rant. This will go in as an extra thing at the end of the episode because there's really not many people to talk. Like I haven't seen my friends in 8 months. So
yeah, and it's amazing to geek out about these kind of things with friends. So I love it.